Just plain reading. A survey of what makes students want to read in middle school classrooms by Gay Ivy and Karen Broadus. Completed by Tamayra Watson
and DeAndrea Jones.
Why is reading important? It's a question that many students ask themselves. Reading is important, as you can see from this slide, with many different pictures where words are spelled incorrectly. An elementary school marquee is advertising a literacy night, and the word literacy is spelled incorrectly. A traffic engineer worker is actually putting down a stop sign, and he spells the word stop SOTP. Another marquee is welcoming back the students from a great break, and they spelled the word had incorrectly and break incorrectly. The study looked at middle school students and how they viewed their classroom culture. The students were given questionnaires about how their classroom environments motivated them in their own reading. After a large scale of questionnaires were conducted, in-depth interviews with a smaller number of students were completed. During the interviews, the following information was sought out. What makes you want to read in your class? And what do you like most about the time you spend in your class? How do we motivate students to read? One, we can operate from understanding the students' needs. Know where the students are, what their interests are, and what do they need. We can manage the content and not the students. Many times we get caught up in the data and where the students need to be with Lexile scores, and we focus on the context and not the students. We can also include interesting activities that coincide with the reading and include more discussions that are student-led and not teacher-centered. And let's move away from the traditional classroom to encourage more individualization and uniqueness. Standards for maximizing student motivation. The student must believe the learning is valuable to them. They have to be involved. They must be successful, and they must feel safe. And the environment must be caring and enabling.
How do we hinder some students from reading in school? A quote from our article states, most importantly, students are expected to become independent readers, yet they get limited opportunities to explore their own interests in reading, to read at their own pace, or to make their own decisions about whether or not to read a book. Basically, this is letting us know that educators should allow students the opportunity in school to read more and to read things that they are interested in. What changes can be made to encourage children to want to read? Students need to have more ownership of their learning. Basically, as stated before, give students an opportunity to feel like the reading is on them, that they have the opportunity to read, they're able to choose their reading material. Also, to provide more comprehension and word identification strategies. When you have students that struggle with reading, this can be very beneficial. Students that already enjoy reading, some of them don't need comprehension and word strategies, but other students do. And in providing that, that gives them an opportunity to get where the other students are so they also can enjoy reading as well. Students need more engaging and interesting reading material and a comfortable reading environment When students feel that their environment is welcoming and warm, they are able to read more in a relaxed setting and increase in the amount of time to read at school. Students currently are able to read, but the amount of time is very, very limited. So a lot of students won't want to read more, and we should definitely encourage that. Well, after some changes are made, we will actually increase the number of students that want to read. We have many that enjoy it already, but we want that number to go up increasingly. Now let's look at those students that already enjoy reading and why they enjoy reading in school. What makes children want to read? First, you have self efficacy. This is basically stating that the student believes he or she can be successful, that they can do it within themselves. They don't need outside motivation, that they have the belief within themselves that they can read and understand what they're reading, which goes back to comprehension, and that they can enjoy it and have confidence to that social interaction. When students are able to read material, and not only are they reading it to themselves, but they're able to peer share and work with a partner or within a group, share out, do oral reports, family discussions, interviews based on what they've read, this encourages more students to want to read in school because they have those outlets to use their reading material in other ways than just the basic individualized reading. What makes children want to read? With intrinsic motivation, this is something again that's with inside of the students. For instance, when they get involved in what they're reading, where they enjoy it and they are completely lost in the book. Also, being curious about what they are reading. Many students are interested in several other topics that may not necessarily be a part of the standard, but it may be an outlet for them to get them involved in reading. Once students really enjoy reading, that's when other aspects of reading can be introduced. The goal is to first get them to enjoy it. Next, you have intrinsic motivation. And all students may not need this kind of motivation because it's something that is receiving encouragement from an outside source, like from a teacher or administrator or the school or family member, where they receive rewards and recognitions. Those types of motivations can actually assist some students, while others are basically intrinsic. We all encourage students to be self motivators, but those that aren't, we have to try to get them to that point. So, receiving rewards can actually help them become more self motivators. Also, when students are able to discuss what they have interpret, not just, okay, the teacher tells them this is what you must learn from reading this. Give the students an opportunity to figure it out themselves and to interpret it themselves, where they come up with their own hypotheses, their own predictions based on what they are reading. And this can be done in all subject areas. Also, having a student responsive culture, which gives the students a voice. It allows the students to be unique and be themselves, where they're able to be a part of the instruction and not just have it teacher centered. Again, moving away from the traditional classroom. And then, of course, making real life connections. When students are able to connect with what they are reading, they enjoy it more. Based on something that I've done within my school, we had a book about a young boy that was involved in living in a gang related neighborhood. A lot of the students enjoyed reading the book and could not put it down because that was their life also. A lot of the students that I taught actually lived in neighborhoods where there were gang activity. So real life scenarios, they were able to relate, and it was easy for them to read and easy for them to get involved within the book. Now, looking at our content area literacy. Now, content area literacy, our definition tells us that this refers to the ability to learn through reading. Learning in all content areas being supported by reading comprehension strategies and study skills. All of our content areas, not just reading and language arts, but science, social studies, and even math, should always incorporate literacy, the ability to read and write. So within all of the subjects, students need to be able to write within those subject content areas and read, not just always something strictly standard based. But as long as it's incorporating literacy, then students will also get the opportunity to be more familiar with writing and start to learn how to read better and become better readers when they're able to receive it from a various number of texts, not just fiction, but nonfiction, informative. Those are the type of things that other subject areas can offer with this to the students to help them become better readers. How can we increase content literacy? As educators, we apply literacy in all the content areas, as I mentioned earlier. Students are able to receive various administrative tests, and they were able to have the reliability of those tests. So, reliability refers to the consistency of those scores. And when we have across the board students reading and writing in all subject areas, those scores can also become consistent. When we make inferences from those scores, that refers to validity. Basically, this is looking at the scores from those students and making our own inferences and interpretations. And that's when we come to flexible grouping and peer work based on the results of those scores. Then, of course, we research and apply the diverse reading topics that students are interested in. All of those things can help us increase content literacy, not only in language arts, but in all subject areas. And now, in closing,
Reading is essential for students' success.
thank you for listening.